Hey everyone, and thank you for joining me again. I just wanted to jump on here and update you. I have a whole video about the fox situation and the man-sized hole that was cut in the fence. Also, they did take the SD card out of the camera that was on my porch, and I did call the sheriff's department. It's a video that I'm going to save because it's for when I'm gone, because it's highly critical of the local police. And the next day I called more lawyers, and I just want to try to convey to you the importance of, if you're in a situation and you are either married to, or you're in a relationship, or thinking about being in a relationship with a police officer or someone of that nature, you really need to understand where you could find yourself. Because, and I've heard stories, over the years, as I began to talk to people about, my relationship, and I've, heard some stories about people getting, women being poisoned through like coffee grounds because it's not obvious, it's over time. That something similar happened to me, and how they tie women up in court. And a lot of men do this, but they are particularly successful because of their knowledge of the law and their relationships with lawyers and judges. So where I am now is, I still believe that there are listening devices in the house. I believe that they really, really, really want me out. I think the local sheriff's department here in Fayette County is complicit in this. I don't know if they had the necessary paperwork to do what they did. I believe that the investigator was probably a key component in this, the private investigator, because he's angry at me that I filed a complaint on him. I cannot let him out of this because, like I said, I encountered someone, one of these people, which I believe to be him, in Target last summer, and he looked at me like he seriously wanted to hurt me. So he's still really, really pissed off about the whole thing. And keep in mind that you can, in this country, you can be investigated for anything. If somebody says something, you can be investigated. Now, what the lawyers are telling me is, because I've not been charged and they haven't called me in for questioning, I haven't been served. So therefore, there's nothing they can do for me, is what the lawyers say. What do you want me to do for you? What can I do for you? You've not been charged. You've not been arrested. You've not been served with any type of subpoena or warrant. There's basically nothing that's happened to you. So because of that, there's nothing that you can easily go to the police about. No, I haven't been touched physically. There's nothing, and the court system works off of the court system works off of physical, bruises, cuts, where you've been assaulted. That's the way our court system works. I will say that Rebecca Zung, she is a former prosecutor or lawyer. I'll try to put her name up. She has some training, but it's a paid training video series type of thing that talks about how the things that happen to you along the way become the evidence. But keep in mind that in her framework, you're already in court with this person, okay? And that's something that I've not been able to do with him because the judge denied the TPO, the temporary restraining order, and therefore I was not allowed to appear in court with him to present my evidence. Also, the whole divorce situation has been continuously blocked I can't tell you how many lawyers I've talked to that won't help me, even after I've paid consult fees and been willing to pay them to help me. They don't want to help me. And these are divorce attorneys. Not to mention, I've called criminal defense lawyers, and that's basically what they say. Well, it doesn't sound to me like you're being investigated. So what happens is they treat you like a suspect, and they do watch you and do all these things, but they stay just here, right? You know, they'll ask you leading questions. Like when I went over there voluntarily to try to get help, then she started asking me questions about how many phones I had. So therefore, they didn't have to call me in for an interview or for questioning because I had gone in there voluntarily. And, you know, when I called them to come out and document, I know that nothing's going to happen. And I told her that. I'm not expecting anything from you in that nature. I know that, you know, you can't prove intent and all that, but I just want to document it. And then she didn't believe that I had vinegar in the sprayer for the fox. And she sprayed it out as I went in the house to get the glove. She didn't believe me. So that's what you're going to get. And I think because they are complicit in this, they are looking for every single little thing that they can get to discredit me. You know, their files already indicate that, you know, I've had a mental episode. And that's how you're going to be treated. So you need to deal with the police very, very, very carefully. And if you are dealing with the police and and you're in a relationship with someone who's in that whole circle, I can't give you any advice, but I think you need to seriously weigh, number one, what state you're living in, and if they have coercive control laws on the books, because that is a framework that lawyers can possibly work within. You need to consider that. And you also need to consider the fact that they are going to quite more than likely possibly blame you for it. They're going to question you and what you're doing. They're probably really not going to question the perpetrator. I will also say that you should, and I'm never really a fan of these whodunit type of crimes shows, but you may also want to start watching things like 48 Hours, Dateline, things of that nature, because it's really interesting how if someone gets killed, the capabilities that they all of a sudden have. It's really, really interesting because, you know, the local police, it's just like they can't do anything for you. Nothing. And you basically have to come to them with some concrete proof. Video, not even a picture, right? They don't care about your documentation, at least not in my case. And they know where you are because these are their people that are doing it. And, you know, because they hacked my network continuously, I believe that maybe they had a local contact within Xfinity that helped them do that. So it was easy for them. And what they end up doing is they investigate you and track you and stalk you just under the threshold, right? I hope that I'm expressing this clearly, because it really is just kind of a clusterfuck kind of thing. It's just serious effery. And so you know that you're being treated like a criminal, right? You know that someone has accused you of something, but no one ever tells you. Your neighbors, quite possibly your friends, your family, people like that, they will never tell you, because what he has given them is so convincing that they don't want to hear anything that you have to say. And you also have to be prepared for the fact that a lot of these people simply just want to jump on the bandwagon. So, like I've said before, men are not lonely enough, okay? leave them over there. Just leave them over there. This is a bad time in our history. Women are being seriously abused more, unalived more. Leave them over there. And you think, that it won't happen to you. If you encounter one of these demons, you are not going to be prepared for this because they are not like us. They don't really have a conscience. They lack empathy. They are incapable of looking at how you feel, how it affects you, things of that nature. They don't care. They are emotional leeches. They are only with you to extract from you. So at this point, I'm thinking, and you all know that I've been in the process of moving, that my best bet at this point is to expeditiously remove myself from his presence and go to a different state. And Georgia doesn't have coercive control laws. They did have a bill. I've talked about that before. Kentucky, the same thing. There is a movement, and I am going to absolutely join that movement. It's mind-boggling what men are allowed to do to women in this country. So the other thing is I'm also going to tell you to make sure that you continue to document just in case you find yourself in court with them. You also, if you do go to court, make sure you get your documents. Any type of court documents, there are online portals, if you don't get copies at the time, that you can go to and, download that information. I had a lady inbox me on Facebook and say, hey, make sure you do this, because she says after, I was done with the whole situation, later on, I tried to come back to get some paperwork, and she says, and my records disappeared. The court system is rigged to protect these monsters. And women really need to be aware of that. Our justice system does not work for us. So, and especially in my case, make sure to stay away from these people. And if you find yourself, you're already involved and you find yourself in a situation like mine, you need to be very, very careful. There's a lot of information online. That's the reason why I'm joining my voice to it, because women need to be more aware of what they're going to be dealing with. Women's law, I'll put that up, is another good one. Like I said before, Rebecca Zung, she's got a really, really good framework. I think her training may be worth it. Even her intro video. There's also another one that I'll address later that will allow you to document even like physical items and have a record of that at the time of the event, to where you can come back and have it intact later on, because the court systems may not allow you to do that. The police won't document the way that they should. So at the end of the day, I'm hoping that once I leave the state and these people, and this is gang stalking. This is community gang stalking. And, there's some other people. There's a lot of people that talk about it, but there's only a few that talk about community gang stalking. This is everywhere that I've gone. So, like I said, at this point in time, I think it's better for me to leave. My mom has been having some problems up there finding a house, and I thought about just going up temporarily, just to, taking the cats with me and just, locking something down, help her get moved, come back and finish packing up. At this point, I don't believe that's a good idea. Because I told him, I said, you can have the house at that point. I've been putting stuff in storage. I'll put the majority of the things that are most important to me in storage. And then, there might be some other stuff that I need to come back for a few days and pack up, if you don't mind. He expressed that he did not want to come back into the house. If I'm gone, he doesn't really want to be in it or around it. not really. And I thought about that when he, in the past, has been so eager to get back into this house, even with me in it. And I really had to pause and think about that. And I had not signed the divorce papers because, I've talked about how they got switched. The information was changed from, I told the online attorney that there was no property to be divided. And instead, they put the house in there and that I would get possession of the house and would need to transfer it into my name or assume the mortgage. And I had X amount of time to do it in. If I didn't do that within that time frame, then the house would be sold and I would get all the proceeds, which in a normal situation, split, that's not fair. In this situation, it would be more than fair because he can never give me back. No one can ever give me back the years that have been taken off my life due to cancer, the pain and suffering I've endured from being poisoned and being crippled, my nerves, things of that nature. You can't give that back to someone. So, but I'm saying that to say, once I leave, I need to be gone for the most part because I believe that they will try to set me up. I 110% believe that. And that's the reason why he was like, well, I'm not moving back in until you're done, completely done. And then he finally said, well, I could come over and check on it. Because I was like, well, I can't just leave the house empty. You're just a few miles from here. I'll have most of my stuff out, the most important things. And, he said he wasn't comfortable in doing that. And I think it's because they would set me up. And then when I come back, to pick up whatever's left, at that point, they would say to the judge, they had probable cause for a warrant, and they will come in and find something conveniently that they've planted somewhere along the way, and I'll be arrested. And, that would be his way of keeping me here. So let's not do that. I'm going to do my utter best. My back is really bad, but I'm pretty tough. I've been through a lot and I'm getting it done. And I'm looking forward to moving on with my life. I will always still advocate for women and these laws. And as a matter of fact, if at all possible, I plan on going through, I already have a degree in political science, and I'm going to go through a paralegal course to either get a second degree or at least a certificate in paralegal studies. And if everything works out, I'm actually going to try to go to law school so that I can really help fight these demons, these criminals, these monsters. I cannot say that strong enough. So hopefully, as I go along, if I run across good information to pass on, I will continue to document the things that happened to me. Today, I went to the storage again. Yes, I was followed, but they are keeping their distance. I don't believe anyone tried to come to the house to get in because I have wired cameras now with some other things I've got set up. So they're a little bit more hesitant to do that. And there we go. So meanwhile, thank you for watching. And I will be back as soon as I can.